Okay, so the model works fine. The plans seem fine for concept stage. So if you guys want to come over here, there's a couple of things. There's a couple of graphical things we could do to start with. So, for example, when you insert the first of all, maybe an A4 size sheet is not the best sheet to use. I would say an A3 is more likely because an A4 is usually just too small. The only time you would use an A4 sheet is if when you make a key junction detail or something. In the old days, we used to use A4s. We used to fax them to site. I don't even know if they use faxes anymore in building sites. They probably have all kinds of stuff going on. But an A3 is the most likely one to use. When you insert the view, your view title pops in sometimes in weird places, not where you want it to go, but you can actually move it, and it's you can just click on it, and if you move the cursor away and then come back, you get these possibility of just dragging it. So now you can just put it in place like that. It's one of those things that you have to actually play with a few times in order to get it right, because it seems weird, the technique. But you click it, and you just relax for 1 second, and then you can move it. If you try and do the whole thing at once, it won't work. You'll actually activate the view, which means you can actually edit the view within the sheet. Okay, so you let's right click, deactivate view. If I just click it, just pause, and then you can move it like that. Okay. Project name is here. That's fine. This isn't a key plan. It's a ground floor plan. Okay. A key plan is usually a small plan that's put up in the corner if you're showing some sections or whatever, and you want to see what the section lines are. Okay. So I would change that. What I'd like you to do for don't say that I checked it. I didn't. I'm not taking legal responsibility for this drawing. Because this is actually what this is. When you put a title block on something, it's actually a legal document. Okay, so I'm not going to tell my insurance company about it this time, but anyway, this is what I want you to do for the next project, is to actually look at the quality assurance folder I gave you and figure out what this code should actually be, because there are specific codes. Different countries have different codes. Different companies have different codes, but there is one standard international code, which is the SFB code, and that's described in the drawing standards, further down in the drawing standards lecture that I have as to how you use that. So if I was just to change this here, if I can just click on this, and because it's showing me the entire house, and it's not talking about any specific element in particular, this would have the code of 99. 9 in the SFB code always means everything. So 99 means absolutely everything. Okay, so just at concept stage, I would just put a bracket in here, 99, and then the next thing we have to think about is what is the level of the drawing, and this level is plans. So plans, sections, and elevations are all at level 3. I'm going to go level 3, and the next number you give it is just a numbering system. So it could be just drawing number 1. So I'm just going to go dot 001. So that to me is a SFB drawing numbering system. Okay. So that's kind of, I want you all to do that with your title blocks for the next submission. The next thing you need to do is kind of consider, because I'm not going to talk about the modeling work here because it's fine. I'm just going to talk about the graphics. I would consider who's the audience for this drawing. I mean, is it for the client, or is it for the design magazine, or is it for the constructor on site? Is it specifically for the bricklayer, or who is it for? So I would say in a concept stage drawing, when you have so little information in here, it's for the client. So if it's for the client, you try and make it look a bit pretty, a bit friendly. Most clients can't read plans, so you try and make it as pretty as possible. So once you've got it in here, you can also edit the drawing within the sheet, so you get a sense of what's going on when you're in the sheet as well. So if I double click, it activates the view, and I can actually then modify the view directly in the sheet as well. So if I come down here and change it to, let's say, a realistic view. Maybe realistic is too much, but let's have a look at it. you don't have a floor in there, I see. So we'll worry about it. We'll worry about it another time. But anyway, and I would probably turn the detail level here down to coarse, which takes all the cavity walls out. You see what I mean? So now, when you're showing it to the client, he's not going to go, why does that wall have 3 stripes in it? Because then you're into a whole discussion that you don't want it to have. You want him to think about, or her to think about, because actually, if you're doing a house, I won't get into that, but you want them to think about what is their lifestyle, how are they going to use the place. So it's actually what's the products that you're selling them here. So I would always keep at this stage the detail level to be coarse. So that will take all the constructional detail out of the wall. So colors, coarse detail level. Probably wouldn't use such a high quality sofa. I would use it for the images, of course, but for the drawing itself, it's always best to use like very standard line based stuff. I mean, you can get, I'm not sure where you downloaded this from, but you can get, did you get it from BIM Object or somewhere? Revit City. You say I can tell it's. That was my first idea, was that it was made by a student or something, because they haven't changed the how it represents itself from in a plan view. You can modify the families so they look funky in 3D in a 3D view, but when you get a plan view, they're just a line drawing, so they don't fill up. You see how much information is in this this drawing. It actually draws your eye to it, so you're taking it away from everything else. The other thing we can do here is we can start to add rooms. So there's no text on this, so it's very difficult for somebody to tell actually what's going on in here. But we can use this room button up here. So I press this room button and just drag it down here. You can see it actually is starting to define the rooms. I press room, and we can do it for the little WC here. And you can see it actually finds the walls, and it fills up the area based on that. So I've made a few different rooms there, and I can go in and we can have a look at what it is. For example, I can change this one to living room. Like that. But I can also select the label, and we have options for the label as well. So I can select the label and say, well, I want it to be text and area, because I want to be able to tell the client that it's actually 56 meters squared. It's a huge living room, massive living room. So that's something that you want the client to know. So we can always go in and say, I don't want it to be the standard text only. I can go in here and say I want it to be text and area, or I can just select one of them, right click, say select all instances in view, and do the same thing, text and area, which will do them all globally. So now it's actually calculated, the room area for us. Now, where do they move this button to? I think they moved it to annotate. Color fill legend. So I'm going to press color fill legend here. So once you press the color fill legend, you have the option to make a room schedule and get it to divide it up according to names. Okay, so I go to press OK here. It suddenly put colors on the thing for me. So we've only got living rooms and rooms at the moment, but we can go around and just select the individual spaces. Now you have to select this, for example, not the label. The label has a different property over here. You need to kind of find the little X that crosses the space. Select that, and then we can come over here and say, okay, this is a bedroom, so I can change it over here and say bedroom. Enter. And you can see it starts to fill in this this schedule down the side here. It also, applies colors to it, but the colors that they apply, how much time have we got? A little bit of time. The colors they apply are not particularly pretty, so you need to be able to modify them as well. So you can always select the legend and edit the color scheme, and tone down the colors to whatever you want them to be. I would always take them down very, very light. So it's almost like, in the old days you would say a watercolor wash. So it's not popping out of the page at you, because it tends to dominate. So things, start to get a little bit different in there. Also, if you're doing this and you're modifying the colors, you can make a judgment as to how you want to, what feeling do you want to give with the colors. So often you will select the bedrooms or the living rooms, and you will give them not a kind of a green color, keep clicking the wrong one, but maybe a warm color. Now this seems like, yeah, okay, so what? It actually has an effect on how the building is perceived. So I might say that, that was the wrong one. Let's just say this one, and we're going to make it some version of orange. Take it down here a little bit, maybe make it a little bit yellow. That's okay. Okay. So now the living spaces, they actually seem more welcoming. I mean, I would actually take the color down even more. And I would do something similar for this, but rooms like the bathrooms, for example, which are not necessarily, you don't necessarily expect them to be warm. If I can find the, there it is there. I'll call that WC. You usually give those a kind of a bluish color, but again, tone down the color. Keep it toned down. You don't want it to be overwhelming. Now, if I come in here and have a look at the line thicknesses, yeah, the line thicknesses are there. Always switch the line thicknesses on, because you want the heavy elements to really pop out of the plan. If you had a floor level in here, maybe you have the texture on, but we can also turn on some shadows by coming over to shadows and put on ambient shadows and apply it. Depending on, well, we don't have a surface in here, so it's not going to show up so much. But you also have to make a decision as to how you want your walls to display. So often a grey wall is not, it's neither one thing or the other. So I would either make it white or black. If you're going to print it out, you're going to pay for printing. Don't make it black, because the printer will just complain because it costs a lot of money because of all the ink. But if you don't have to worry about that stuff, make it black. But otherwise, you can make it white. And the way to do that is to modify the visibility and graphics. And in here, we can actually change what everything looks like in the drawing. So I can come down to walls, for example, and I can change the cut pattern here. See, it says cut pattern, and that's the pattern in the wall. If I press override, we can say the color, and we can just change it to white. That's okay. And the pattern we're just leaving as a solid pattern. If I apply that, the walls will pop out as white in there. So there's a few other things I would do in here. I mean, you've got many extremely detailed families in there, and they look great in the 3D view, but in the plan view, they just attract too much attention. So I would remove them out. So that's what we would call. If I was to work a little bit more on that, put some surfaces in there, make sure enough furniture is in there to really describe the activities in there. That's what we call a concept stage plan. Okay. And after that point, we'll do next week is we'll get into a technical stage plan, which has got it's got different settings and so forth. Okay, so let's deactivate that view again and see what else we got in here. Yeah.
Did you do that in a sheet, or did you do it on the actual plan?
I did it in the sheet. That is a very good question, because you don't have to. So if we have this, let's say we got key plan. That was key plan. What was that one? Elevations, cross sections. What happened to your plan there? So we got ground floor, and then we got first floor. So let's say, whoops. So let's say, that's what you want to use the first floor finish, yeah, okay. So let's say you've done all this work on the ground floor plan, and you don't want to repeat all that stuff in terms of colors and settings and so on. You need to put in all the floor areas, obviously, because it doesn't know if you want to calculate them or not. But what you can do is you can right click on the one that you've worked on, and then you say create view template from view. So create view template. We'll call this plan template concept stage. And then in here it shows you all the settings that I've changed for that view. So it turns up as an option in here. We've got architectural plan, area plan, stripe plan, and so on. Plan template concept stage. I'll press OK. And if I go into the first floor level, it's first floor finish you got it called, yeah. And let's say we wanted to put a bedroom in here. So the first thing, just to show you that it all works, if I go in here and say room, and we can change it before we stick it in. Let's turn it into a bedroom, so it has the same color setup, like that. If I then say I want to apply exactly the same settings to this one, we just right click on it again and say apply template properties, and then we just go and select the one we want. Plan template concept stage, apply properties, and it does it. This is, I think this is a roof. Yeah, it's cutting a roof, so we haven't changed the roof settings yet. But so that means you can always go through. You can see that it's actually starting to show the shadows there, whereas it didn't show it on the one there was no floor surface in. So that kind of gives you a little bit more quality in it as well. Okay. So that's view templates, which is actually a massive time saver. Massive time saver. Okay. If you edit things in the sheet view, then they will modify the view everywhere else as well. So you can see the ones I edited in the view over here, they've also modified the sheet view. So that's the whole point of Revit is to minimize the amount of repetitive work you have to do. Now, what else do we look at? Elevations. I tell you what, I'll just look at the sheets.
Change them on the sheet, does it then change the elevation? So
Yes.
okay, so it's both ways.
Yeah, they link completely together. The only way not to do that is to right click on the view and then duplicate it. So each drawing has its own logic. Okay, so let's say we were to, this was also concept stage, so what do you think we should put in here? Colors. I would actually put colors, shadows, trees, people, all kinds of stuff in here. One of the most important things is you've shown the ground floor level, and that's fine. But you actually have to show the ground line as a dark line. If you had a site in here, it would automatically do it for you. If you had a topography in there, it would automatically cut the side for you. But you need to show the ground line as a dark black line along the bottom there. Otherwise, it just looks unprofessional. Something that students always do. So let's just do this again. If I double click on this to activate the view, we can turn on the realistic view, because I assume you got some materials in there. It's pretty dark. We can come over to the visibility of graphics. Oh, sorry, no, we'll do this one first. We'll come over to the graphic display, and I'm going to turn up the lighting. So we'll turn the ambient light right up to here and see what that does. And we can kind of play with that as much as we want. We can turn the shadows down so they're not so dominant. But actually, your house is black, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. And we can actually, we'll cast the shadows in here, because always in a concept stage you show cast shadows, and it's a good idea to show ambient shadows as well, because it just gives more depth to it. If I just zoom in there, you can see that the shadows are cast across. The black material you're using is actually, it's difficult to represent in this way, so I would probably just change it from realistic view to either consistent colors, it's still a bit gray, or shaded. You know, I would try and work that up a little bit as to how that's represented in that view. It doesn't necessarily have to be gray, or you can always just do it hidden line, I suppose, because if you have some quality in these drawings and some depth in them, you're still telling them something. But you can see as soon as you put the cast shadows in there, you get more sense of the three-dimensional nature of it. If this was a technical drawing, I would show all of these levels in like that. If it's a client drawing, I wouldn't show them at all. So I would actually just select one of them, I would right click and just say hide in view, category, switch them off. So then you just have, you know, the object that you're selling the client is in there. And then if I had topography in there, I would have the dark line on the ground. I might show something like, if we go into the annotate view, a spot elevation. And so I can actually just choose the top here, and I can just say, well, this level is 6.318. This level is, 3.978. And so, overall dimensions, floor level is such and such, and so on. So I would show overall dimensions, and I might actually, it'd probably make more sense actually to, drag them this way rather than that way. Just overall dimensions, because that means you could use the same document to go to the local authorities and say, well, the roof is only this high, or we're at this level off the ground, and so forth. Trees, people, main dimensions, lifestyle, Porsches, all that kind of stuff. Oh, maybe not a Porsche stuff. Don't put a Porsche in there. So that would be maybe a concept if all that stuff was in the background there. Again, and then when we get to technical design, we put the levels back in, we put a lot more dimensions in, and so on, and so on. Okay. What else have we got here? Cross sections. Again, I would apply, first of all, think about, is it a concept stage, technical stage, and then apply the same logic to the sections, because I don't know of a client, the client doesn't want to see the cavity wall again. Turn down detail. Oh, sorry, what did I turn it to? I turned it the wrong way. Turn it to coarse level of detail. And we can actually, what's the name of this viewport? Okay, we can't. We actually have to go. We actually have to go into the view itself to apply the template to it. So we go into the section view. Which section is this? Northern cross section 1 to 100. Again, we can use the same template if we wanted to. So we could just right-click, apply template properties. We might want to modify the. They don't actually give us the option to use the plan template in here, so we actually have to set up a template for the plans and the sections, and then we can modify it any way we want. And usually it's the case that if I go back into the elevations here, it's usually the case nowadays that you don't. Well, in a concept drawing, it's not so important, but later stage drawings, you don't put more than one drawing on every individual sheet. You have like a sheet per elevation. And it's to do with filing and legal. A3, yeah. So if you have a 1 to 50 elevation, it's going to take up pretty much the whole A3 sheet. If we did it as an A1 size concept board, yeah, I would do it with like this. But when we get to the technical stages, it's usually one drawing per sheet, because it's easier to find in your filing system, where each sheet is. But other than that, that's it's nice work. So I would just for the next week, work it up a little bit more, and add some of that site information that I was talking about in the lecture to make a proper site plan, and that'll be that. Okay. That's that. Let's have a look at